My name is Ritu Dhand, and I am the Chief Scientific Officer at Springer Nature. And I've been invited to answer a few questions, which are going to be coming across my screen in a moment. So without further ado, I'll start with the very first question, which I can just see coming in. You started your scientific career in cancer research. What attracted you to this field? Gosh, that's a long time ago. As part of my master's, I had to work in a lab, and I remember thinking that I wanted to go and work in a research institute rather than a university to try a different environment. So I did a small project at the Ludwig Institute of Cancer Research and absolutely loved me. And it was a good job they did because they also invited me to stay and do a PhD with them. And I had an amazing time. The lab that I was working in at that time was very high profile. So everything that came out of that lab was being quickly published, which isn't the norm. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I was exposed to a really dynamic research environment. And every piece of research that we did in that lab mattered and was published. And I loved every minute of it. I did live, eat and breathe my PhD for all those years. But I have to admit, it never felt like work. I absolutely wanted to do it. It was an absolutely phenomenal time. Next question. Has there been a particularly defining moment in your career? I think it would have to be leaving the bench and joining the publishing industry. At that time, I have to admit, it's not something I ever thought I would do. That's leave research. The research environment is just so different from any other job. It becomes a sort of a haven, and to leave can be quite scary. But I did know a couple of researchers that had joined Nature at the time, and they told me that they didn't copy edit manuscripts, and the job was really interesting and involved actually overseeing the peer review procedure and also being immersed in cutting edge research. And to be quite honest, I was absolutely hooked. If you enjoy learning about science, it's a great job, and I've never looked back. I do more publishing strategy and science communication now than actually reading research. But the practice of scientific communication is also something that I'm very passionate about. I want to see it improve. I think there's a lot we can do. So it's a change of direction that I'm very much enjoying. Next question. What scientific discovery still makes you go, wow? Until a couple of years ago, I would have said sequencing the first draft of the human genome, which was an amazing experience to be part of. And it opened a huge door in biomedical research, which continues to be open today. But I now have to say it's COVID. COVID heralded a change in scientific communication. We saw research being shared on social media, scientific discussion happening in real time. The use of social media as the platform of choice for researchers, which allowed journalists to then engage and report the research in an accessible manner, took scientific research into the hands of the general public. And suddenly everyone was a COVID expert. It was an amazing phenomenon. And I say was, I should say is. It is an amazing phenomenon. And even within the research community, there's been a huge commitment from all researchers to share their data and deposit their research papers in preprint servers. Every journal's aim when reviewing COVID research has been to verify and validate the research and publish it as quickly as possible. The emphasis has been on rapid communication rather than enhancing and extending the research. And I do think that's been a real game changer in the scientific community. we've seen the impact of research turned into therapy in real time. This was the dream of how we thought research should be conducted. But unfortunately, it hasn't always been the scientific norm. But I do believe, and I hope, that now, having seen how collaboration and sharing research can impact scientific practice, we will more readily impact the way research is done today. What do you think are the main challenges facing scientists today, and how can academic journals help? Now, there's a question. There are many challenges that researchers face, but one specific challenge is finding a suitable home for the research that they value. And at Springer Nature, we do offer a wide range of journals to suit different needs. We have journals that publish all manner of research, from milestones to research that fills in the detail that a specialist in the field will value. We also have several high editorial quality journals that only peer review for scientific correctness and do not make editorial decisions on the impact of the study. And I do feel that journals with this peer review criteria, although they've been around for years, haven't received due recognition. Scientific communication has evolved immensely of late, and the advent of preprint servers means there's a lot of unverified scientific research in the public domain. And the global pandemic has shown there is a need and a place for journals that serve to rapidly verify and validate research. And I think that COVID also showed the importance of publishing everything once verified. And that does include negative results, which many of these journals will also publish. Secondly, I think as science becomes more multidisciplinary and new fields emerge, it's important that we launch new journals which reflect those communities and bring them together to ensure your research gets the widest reach. And that's something we're very aware of and always thinking about as well as doing. Indeed, in terms of increasing the visibility of a research paper, we do a lot of work behind the scenes, adding metadata to your paper to ensure your research is discovered in more searches and adding links to ensure that it can be accessed from known databases. Indeed, I think all the work that we do behind the scenes to actually promote and make research more discoverable is probably one of the least known facts about us as a publisher. And at a time when there are over 2 million primary research papers being published each year, as an author, we think it's really important that your hard work is seen by the people that care most about it. Next question. What are the 3 things that you are most excited about at Springer Nature at the moment? Oh, there's so much happening. 3 things. I'd say I'm going to talk about open science. I'm going to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, and I'm going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So let's start with open science, because it's something I think about a lot of the time. In terms of open access, there are options to publish on all our research journals. Some journals may only publish open access, but most of our journals will give you that option. And I think I want to start by saying that most people think that open access equals open science, but open access is only the tip of the iceberg. For open science to be meaningful and allow researchers to build on research, data needs to be shared, and methodology and protocols need to be written up in full and shared. Springer Nature has committed to promote open science. And we've brought in policy and we've invested in infrastructure to support the practice of open science. And I'm going to briefly describe 4 main initiatives. So firstly, we encourage and we support early sharing of research. And we have a collaboration with the Research Square preprint server to ensure all our authors can easily submit a preprint when submitting to one of our journals. And in terms of data sharing, our journals carry an open data availability statement. All research papers carry this. And this provides the accession codes and links to the source data and notes any conditions for access. We also have several journals that are dedicated to describing how large data sets are created to ensure that there is effective information on them for reuse. We've also invented in several platforms one for the sharing of protocols and for protocols and methodology. And one example is the Protocol Exchange, which is an open repository for the free deposition of protocols. And we also have created a portal called Springer Nature Experiments, which hosts journals and books that specialize in methods to support our researchers navigate this space more effectively. And finally, at the level of our journals, we're opening up the peer review procedure. And many of our journals undertake transparent peer review, where reviewer reports are also published, so that researchers can actually benefit from seeing how science evolves. I think I'm going to move on to the Sustainability Development Goals, which is perhaps one of the most exciting areas in research. So they were formalized back in 2015, and last year at Springer Nature we published over 400,000 articles in our books and journals programs. So that tells you how active an area of research this is. And as a publisher, we feel we have a role to play in educating researchers that have the tools to potentially resolve these global challenges. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of resolving the SDGs. And that is, we need many different communities to come together and understand each other's language and problems. And that's not happening very well at the moment. The SDGs came out of the social sciences and the humanities, and it's actually the natural scientists that are going to have many of the tools to help resolve some of these issues. And we also need policymakers to come on board to define those societal changes that need to be in place. And we also need to engage the people with the regional knowledge who are actually living through these problems and are best placed to understand which solutions will be most effective. So we need to bring that together for communities that speak different languages, have their own jargon, have their own ways of doing things, to get solutions to these challenges. And so at Springer Nature, we do have many journals that are dedicated to publishing the SDGs, but to support our researchers better navigate this space, we've been creating content hubs for all 17 SDGs, which showcase which journals and books we have in those particular areas, as well as the latest research that's being published. And recently we've just launched the Education Content Hub, which is a very dynamic place. And we have interviews from editors giving context on the research. And I'm telling everyone to go take a look. So please do. And we're also part of the SDG Publishers Compact. And what does that mean? So the compact is designed to inspire action among publishers to accelerate progress in this space. And we've been committed to raising awareness and have a program of events that promote and report on progress in this area. And in terms of engagement, we have several activities in place, webinars and meetings. For example, we've established a series of virtual conferences in partnership with the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And the very first one of these was held late last year and was very successful. And I think I'm going to stop talking about the SDGs, and move on to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and tell you about some of the things that are happening there. Springer Nature is absolutely committed to reducing inequalities in the communities. And we want to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in all our activities. And how are we going about this? We're trying to weave the values of DEI in the way we work and into what we create. And we have a program of initiatives to support this. And there are three main arms. We want to become more inclusive in our internal practices. We want to educate our research communities, and we want to improve research by ensuring that our policies are aligned with DEI practices. And so we've started with our own internal practices. We've been training all our employees, and we've put DEI practices into place for how we recruit. We've also engaged the wider community with webinars, and there is a lot of content being published on the subject. And we've hosted conferences. Indeed, recently we held the Breaking Barriers for Gender Equity Through Research conference, which attracted over 1,600 international participants. And that was a very exciting conference. We are at an early phase in our efforts, but amazingly, they've already been recognised, as earlier this year when Springer Nature won the Diversity Team of the Year at the British Diversity Awards, and that was very, very exciting. So there will be a lot more happening this year, and do keep an eye out for more announcements. And, I think I've come to the end. There's no more questions. It's been a pleasure to be able to talk about me and my interests and what we're going to be doing on the Springer Nature journals. And with that, I shall say goodbye and thank you.